Hello, my name is 한다-환산스님, and this is Sun Meditation in English. First, please, all of us, assume proper meditation posture, whether you're sitting in a chair or on a meditation mat. Now just relax into your posture, and next we will engage in preparation breathing. So together, inhale, hold, then exhale through the mouth. Once again, inhale, hold, then exhale through the mouth. Once again, I will remind our viewers, when we exhale, when we inhale, hold, and exhale, on the out-breath, imagine that you are expelling and releasing all of the pent-up tension and worry and toxin and waste products in both our minds and our bodies. And now, without interruption, let's engage in abdominal breathing. So inhale through the nose and push out your lower belly. Hold for 2 to 3 seconds. Then exhale through the nose and draw in your lower belly. Do this in a slow, relaxed, and natural manner. Once again, inhale. Hold. Then exhale. Allow your body to relax as your breath cycle naturally becomes more stable and longer. Inhale. Hold. And then exhale. And now let's engage our hwadu, 이모고, the question that we ask ourselves in meditation. Inhale. Hold. And then together, 이모고. I'll recommend even to our viewers at home to say this out loud and follow along in the program to focus ourselves even in our own home environment. So once again, inhale, hold, and then together, 이모고. 이모고. What is this? This. The thing that is asking, what is this? What is this? What is this within me that generates thoughts? What is this within me that feels my emotions and my physical sensations? When I imagine the face of someone very close to me or a place very familiar to me, what is it within me that sees that image within my mind, like an image projected onto a movie screen? When someone calls my name, what is it within me that instantly recognizes the sound of my own name? We ask ourselves this question to generate the state of spiritual doubt, the state of being obstructed, blocked, of trying to know the unknowable, trying to see the invisible, trying to remember something that we have lost. Once again, why don't we try this? Inhale, hold, and then together, 이모고. And once again, I will ask our studio audience members and our viewers at home to continue maintaining this posture, this abdominal breathing, and maintain asking ourselves the question, 이모고, throughout the course of today's program. Now, today's topic for contemplation and meditation is our unhealthy obsession with our looks, our physical appearance. This is a topic of increasing concern for people all over the world. Now, there is a famous phrase that says, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." This is a very well-known phrase, and long ago it was attributed to Confucius, and it was also called a classic Chinese proverb. But actually, apparently, it was coined by advertisers nearly 100 years ago. One way or the other, we now live in an age where a picture, an image, can be replicated thousands, millions, billions, even trillions of times. and disseminated all over the world with incredible speed and relative ease. And as people get busier and busier in their daily lives, we feel like we don't have time to read or to listen, to learn something about a person or an idea or a product or whatever. We want to know things at a glance. And because of this desire, because the speed of life demands that we absorb as much information as quickly as possible, the image, the man-made image, has become increasingly important in our society and continues to become more and more important. And because we now have the means to do so, we can create those demanded images very quickly and disseminate them very, very powerfully and very, very broadly. So what we now find is that all of us who live in modern civilization are inundated. We're flooded by images from all sides. And because we're flooded like this, because we're virtually or literally overwhelmed by all the imagery that people present to us in very ingenious and pervasive ways, we tend to remember our first impression of something or someone, or we remember the image of that thing or that person that we've been exposed to most frequently. One way or the other, I think it's safe to say that we are now living in the age of the image. And in this age, it can often feel like appearance is more important than content, that the way a person looks is more important than how they behave. And what we find, because our communications technology has become so accessible and so easy to use and so portable, we find that we don't have to engage in face-to-face meetings as much as we used to. Face-to-face meetings have become more infrequent, and when they do happen, they've become shorter. And because of that, when we do meet someone who's important to us for personal or professional reasons, the first impression that we make to each other and the last image that we leave behind for each other have become more and more important. So it's no wonder then that people all over the world, of all ages and personal backgrounds, are increasingly concerned with their physical appearance, with the image that they project. For the first time in history, because of social media services like Facebook and YouTube and whatever else is out there, the photo images of ordinary people can be disseminated all over the world. This was not possible only a few years back. Until only recently, only the photo images of very famous people could be distributed broadly. But now, anyone with just a computer and a camera can distribute their images on a very, very broad basis. And therefore, I think that the line between being well known and being a celebrity has started to vanish, if it hasn't vanished already. The end result, of course, is that we're all very, very concerned about our personal appearance. And as self-care and cosmetic products and services and information become more and more widely available, more and more accessible, what we find, I think, are that more and more ordinary people are learning how to put on makeup and do their hair and dress and work out like professional celebrities or models or athletes. And so what happens then, of course, is that our social norms, our standards for appropriate physical appearance and physical attractiveness are getting higher and higher and higher. So it's only natural that people are beginning to feel a little bit stressed about how they look. We're beginning to feel higher and higher levels of distress and anxiety about our personal appearance, especially because there's such a close link between how we feel about how we look and our overall self-esteem. So as a result of this phenomenon, I think some important questions naturally arise, which I would like to address on today's program. The first question is, do we really have to look like a professional celebrity to be considered socially acceptable and socially attractive? I mean, is that really something that we ought to be trying to do? And is that a standard that we ought to be trying to uphold? And the next question I would like to ask is it appropriate for us to use the physical features of professional, let's say, Hollywood actors or models as the standard for evaluating our own faces and bodies? We have to remember that their physical features, these are the physical features of people who use their looks to make a living. Once upon a time, not long ago, in our culture, when we looked at these celebrities, at these actors and models and various kinds of performers, we looked at them as rare specimens of beauty to be admired, perhaps envied. But I think there's been a cultural shift, and we now look at them, we now look at their features as a kind of standard that ordinary people like ourselves are expected to follow and even match. Somehow along the line, we've been convinced or persuaded or perhaps duped into thinking that everyone can look like a professional celebrity and everyone ought to look that way. So the question that arises from that then is, well, what if I don't look like that? I mean, what if I really don't look like that at all? And what if I don't have the time, the energy, and the resources, or even the willingness to try to make myself look that way? Then do I have to consign myself to feeling socially unappealing or unattractive or worse, even ugly? So what we want to consider today is what do the teachings and practices of Sun Buddhism have to offer to address these very, very troubling questions that affect us on such a deeply personal level. Now, before I get to that, before I get to what Buddhism has to offer, I would like to share some information and statistics about the culture of beauty and the kinds of expectations that it imposes upon us. Because when you look into this kind of thing, you find out that the problems that are created by this culture of beauty are quite severe and really worth our attention. Let's take body image, for example. In the American male population, among all American men, roughly 25% of them, 25% of American men are estimated to have the basic physical proportions that you need to be a professional male model. 25%. 25% can work on themselves and maybe dream of having that kind of career or doing that kind of work. This means that 75% of men are being excluded. 75% of men are basically in a situation where they're being told that they don't have the basic physical structure to attain the current ideal of male beauty. Now that's pretty rough, but when we get to the statistics for women, it is much, much harsher. Now, in the fashion industry, the ideal proportions for a professional female model are as follows. Their height is expected to be between 5'9" and 5'11". That is between 173 and 180 centimeters. Their bust line is expected to be between 31 and 34 inches, which means between 78 and 86 centimeters. Their waists are expected to be between 22 and 24 inches, which is between 56 and 61 centimeters. And finally, their hips are expected to be between 31 and 35 inches, which is between 78 and 89 centimeters. So that's a lot of numbers, but what it boils down to is this. Less than 2% of the American population of women have those proportions. 98% of American women, perhaps of women in the world, are being basically told that they have to look like someone who looks completely different than them. They have to have the bodies of women who are completely physically, structurally different than them. Now, it's amazing that people try to follow such austere standards at all. If it were a matter of wealth, if 98% of the population of a given country were being told, you have to live in a house, a mansion, that costs millions of US dollars. You have to have an army of servants. You have to drive a luxury car. You have to wear suits that cost thousands of dollars, and you have to eat food in restaurants that only serve gourmet food that cost hundreds of dollars. If you impose standards like that upon the bulk of the population of the country, undoubtedly the people would reject it, would revolt. There would just be a very, very heated cultural and social conversation, and without doubt, those standards would be rejected. You cannot ask 98% of the population to live the same lifestyle as the top 2% income earners. And yet, when it comes to our own bodies, especially the bodies of women, people struggle to match statistically impossible standards. And and this is very well known, and one of the greatest impact that has, of course, is on our physical health. The stress that's given on a psychological level is a given, but on the physical level, it impacts us most greatly at the level of our body weight. People become incredibly concerned with their body weight. And the reason for that is this. If you want to be a female model with height of 5'9" to 5'11", meaning 173 to 80 centimeters, and a waist of 22 to 24 inches, 56 to 61 centimeters, that means that at that height, you will weigh 110 to 115 pounds. That is 50 to 52 kilograms. The average woman in that height range weighs 145 to 150 pounds, which is 66 to 68 kilograms. There is a vast difference. We would have to, a woman of that height would have to lose, the average woman of that height would have to lose 30 to 33 pounds, 15 to 16 kilograms, just to match the basic outline of a fashion model. 20 years ago, the average weight of a professional fashion model was 8% less than the weight of the average woman of her basic physical dimensions. Today, this is a shocking statistic. Today, the professional fashion model weighs on average 23% less than the average woman of comparable size. That's actually almost a quarter of her body weight. So then it's no wonder that people, if they want to look like these images that they see in the media of models and actresses, it's no wonder that they're going to make very intensive efforts to lose as much weight as possible. So it's been estimated in the year 2012 by ABC News that up to 112 million Americans in the United States were on a diet at any given time. That's an amazing figure. That's a third of the entire American population. And then in the year 2013, according to the Boston Medical Center, Americans spent $33 billion on weight loss products. Now unquestionably, the vast majority of those consumers who bought weight loss products were women. In 2012, again, ABC News estimated that 85% of the consumers who bought weight loss products were women. So this is having an incredible effect on our population physically, psychologically, and economically. From a common sense point of view, we are creating the perfect plan to create eating disorders within our female population. So on the level of body image and body weight alone, the culture of beauty is creating what can only be described as devastating consequences for the mental and physical health of our population. And there's yet still a third consideration to be dealt with in this issue, and that is our increasing obsession with youthfulness, with appearing youthful. Just on a personal note, I don't know when this started happening, but suddenly what I'm beginning to observe around me is that if someone thinks that someone correctly guesses your age, if someone says that you look your actual age, people become disappointed. There is a general expectation that we all look younger than our actual age. When you think about this, this is very nearly the height of stupidity. How can you ask everybody to look younger than everybody of the same age? This is a mathematical impossibility. Now, about 10 or 15 years ago, actually when I was studying in the United States, the fashionable thing to say was 40 is the new 30. A 40-year-old, by taking care of their health and so forth, can live the life of a 30-year-old and look like a 30-year-old because of these increasing techniques in cosmetics and health and so forth. Well, recently, just in the last few months, I was very startled to find an article on the internet that said that 50 is the new 30. And this article contained photos of very famous actresses who were around the age of 50. And these actresses were wearing swimsuits and showing off faces and bodies that really did look like women in their 30s. So this is the new standard. And of course, it's a completely crazy standard because we are being asked to look not 10, but 20 years below us. That's one entire generation. We are expected to look like people who could be our biological children. And what's happening, of course, is that the signs of aging are becoming stigmatized. We are learning to disapprove the signs of aging in others and ourselves. We are creating a culture in which the signs of aging are stigmatized and despised. You might just as well tell people, it's exactly the same thing as telling people that if you breathe too much, it's socially inappropriate and kind of unappealing and unattractive, and really you should try and hide that, breathing too much. So it's exactly the same thing because the fact that we need to eat, the fact that we need to age are biological facts. So I wanted to present this information to have us all on the same page so that we are all completely aware that being concerned about our looks, being concerned about our physical appearance is not just a personal problem. It has actually become a global, social, cultural, and health problem. So why don't we take a break here, and when we get back, we will consider what Buddhism has to offer in terms of getting a handle on our obsession with our appearance. Once again, today's topic of contemplation and meditation is what do Sun Buddhist teachings and practices have to offer in helping us cope with our unhealthy attachment and obsession with our physical appearance. In coming to terms with this question, I think from a Buddhist perspective and also from a common sense perspective, the first thing that we need to understand is that all physical beauty is an illusion. Our physical appearance is an illusion. What I mean by that is that none of us actually look the way we do unless we make ourselves look this way. For example, I notice that most of the men are clean-shaven. These days, men don't often wear beards. In order to maintain that appearance, we have to shave every day. I notice that most of you have hair with products in them or have permed them in some way. So our hair also is not looking the way it would normally look. Everything about our outer appearance has been constructed. It is not real. It is not how we actually look, whatever that may mean. If we were left to our own devices in the wild, our fingernails would grow out, for men, our beards would grow out, our hair would grow out, we would look completely different. Even for myself as a monastic, this appearance that you see before you needs to be maintained according to an austere program. If I didn't shave my head for a month, I would have hair and I would no longer be distinguishable from anyone else. I would no longer look like a monastic. I have to wear these clothes to appear as a monastic. I have to even sit like this to be taken seriously as a monastic. We are manufacturing images of ourselves that are not entirely real. Okay? The truth is that our physical appearance is constantly changing. Across the course of our lives, from when we're born as babies, and then we grow through childhood to adolescence, young adulthood, middle age, and in our old age, we are constantly changing. On a day-to-day level, we are shifting slightly. It may not be easily perceptible, but we are shifting slightly. Definitely on a month-to-month level and on a year-to-year level, we are constantly changing. So this idea that we have a fixed outward appearance is an illusion. We're always looking, according to the Buddhist teachings, as unenlightened beings, we are always looking for permanence and constancy in a world and an existence that is inherently impermanent and ever-changing. Now, the problem for us is that it's the way that we identify and recognize one another. Now, I've noticed that in today's modern smartphones, in our cell phones, when you record each other's phone numbers, what you can do is you can take a photo image of that person and put it in, so that when that person calls you, when your phone rings, their photo image will appear on the screen and you will know who they are. Well, that's very similar to the way we recognize one another, I think. We have an image of another person in our minds, and we think that image is that person. But just as with the cell phone, when you see that little photo pop up when they call you, that cell phone photo is an image of one moment in the lifetime of a person taken under certain circumstances of lighting and that person's physical condition and so forth. That image is not that person. It's a representation of one moment in that person's life. Likewise, the image that we see in our minds of that person is also just a snapshot of a larger course of change that we are all going through. What's even more interesting is that for ourselves, we have an image of ourselves in our mind. It's almost like we took a selfie photo. So we have a photo in our minds of what we look like based on what we see in the mirror from day to day. And what we feel about that image is how we feel about ourselves, because we think that image is ourselves. And it's very, very arbitrary. If that image in our heads matches the image that have been implanted in our minds by the culture and media of beauty, if we look like it, we feel good about ourselves. And if we don't look like it, we feel bad about ourselves. One way or the other, we are matching images that don't actually exist in reality. Those models and actresses also don't look like that in their day-to-day life. They have been primed and prepared in a very, very aggressive way, and then their images have been photoshopped and, digitally enhanced and so forth. So we're all trying to look like something that doesn't exist. And we think we look like something that, again, is only an image in our minds. Our physical appearance is an illusion. There is no fixed appearance. It is a constant shift over time. So within Buddhist teachings, what some Buddhist teachings say is that when a person is born, the elements of the physical body gather like a cloud. It's like the formation of a cloud. And then we live like a cloud for as long as the cloud holds its shape. And then when the time comes for us to die, for our physical bodies to die, the elements of our bodies scatter like a cloud. That's a very good metaphor. And in the course of a lifetime, that cloud will not maintain one shape. It'll constantly be swirling and shifting and changing. So when we feel bad about what we look like, what we're really doing is we're feeling bad about an image in our minds that has nothing to do with reality. Whether we feel good about that image or whether we feel bad about it, it is all based upon an illusion. And from the Buddhist point of view, it is considered erroneous. We are in error. We are out of touch with our own reality. So this is the Buddhist diagnosis, typically on any form of attachment to the physical body. So then, we have to ask ourselves, from the Buddhist perspective, then is our outer appearance completely meaningless, completely worthless? We should just not care about it all. I don't think that that's what Buddhism teaches us. At the beginning of this program, I suggested that we may be living in the age of the image. So we can ask ourselves, well, why? Why do so many images exist? What purpose do they serve? And I will suggest once again that the images exist. We use those images for communication, to distribute information, large quantities of information very efficiently and very quickly. Okay? So when we work on our personal image, what we are doing is we are communicating. We are deciding what we want to communicate about ourselves to the people we meet. To put it in another way, we are deciding what information about ourselves we want to make publicly available. To put it in an even simpler way, we are simply trying to show other people what we're like as people and how we hope to be treated. in a very real way, taking care of our personal appearance is about the same thing as giving someone your business card. It tells them what you do and kind of what you're like. It gives basic information. On that level, on that very, very practical level, on the level of hygiene, courtesy, and facilitating social relationships, of course, our physical appearance is important and will produce consequences. How we choose to manipulate our appearance will have real consequences in our lives, and so we should pay attention to it. I'm not saying that we should all shave our heads and wear sackcloth and never take a bath. Okay? So then if that's the case, then what kind of personal appearance, physical appearance, should we be striving for? If we know that the body image, body weight, and youth-obsessed standards of the culture and industry of beauty are inherently unhealthy to us, then what standards should we use in maintaining our outward appearance? And on that level, Sun Master Songdam suggests that when we work on our personal appearance, we should try to appear clean, healthy, and sincere. Now, as simple as this advice sounds, I think that it's quite profound to set standards like that for our personal appearance. First of all, in socializing with others, in meeting others, it's highly appropriate. It threatens no one. It makes people feel comfortable. And on a personal level, in terms of our own personal well-being and development and growth and so forth, these are very healthy standards, because in order to look clean and healthy and sincere, you actually have to be clean, healthy, and sincere. It's the easiest way to appear that way. So these are standards of physical appearance that enhance our health, our well-being, and our happiness, and also allow us to function well and effectively in the world. So Sun Master Songdam, in his sort of natural, casual style, just kind of says it casually when he speaks in his Dharma speeches, but I have found that this is very helpful and profound advice, and it's something that I would like to share with all of our viewers and our studio audience members. We have to do something about our physical bodies in terms of self-presentation. If we must, then trying to look clean, healthy, and sincere, I think, is a good way. It's a very practical and very wise way to carry ourselves in our daily lives in the world. Now, the bottom line with Buddhism, though, is that any attachment, any obsession with our physical form is inherently unhealthy, because it is conducive to producing suffering. It causes us to suffer because we are becoming attached to something that is basically impermanent. And in his Dharma speeches, Sun Master Songdam gives a very graphic sort of explanation of what it's like for a person to become attached to their bodies. He tells us to imagine a person. Imagine that we have a leather sack, a leather pouch, and inside of that sack we put in blood and bones and guts and feces and urine and pus. All of these materials that we consider to be very foul and foul-smelling. We put it all into that bag, and then we tie it very, very tightly, so none of that odor, no hint of it escapes. And then we spend the rest of our time putting perfume on that sack and putting, beautiful colors on it and wrapping it in expensive fabrics and parading it around. And if someone says, "Oh, your sack, it's so beautiful and it smells so nice," then we're so happy that we can't fall asleep at night. And if someone says, "Oh, there's something, your sack smells funny today. There's and your sack it looks too big," then we're so upset that we go home crying and we won't come out, and we think, "Oh, well, maybe I should make this sack thinner." So he says, what kind of mentality is that? And one day, we look at the sack of somebody else and we think, "Oh, that's such a beautiful sack. I have to live with that sack for the rest of my life. I'm going to care for it. I'm going to devote my life to maintaining this sack." And then as we grow old, one day something rips the sack and all of that blood and bones and feces comes rolling out, and suddenly that sack that we loved so much becomes a source of horror when we turn away. Is that a wise way to live? Sun Master Songdam asks us. So that's something to consider, that that we really, when we're so concerned about our outer appearance in a very real way, we are concerning ourselves with the surface of a very large and volatile leather sack. Many of us are familiar with the saying, beauty is only skin deep. From the Buddhist perspective, what that really means is that our outer appearance is merely the skin of an animal body that is aging and dying over time. When we become attached to that, we are guaranteeing ourselves suffering. This is why I personally believe that the inner transformation, the spiritual revolution of consciousness that is promised by the Sun Buddhist tradition is still relevant, is in fact even more relevant than ever in this age of the image. The culture of beauty, the culture and industry of beauty as it stands today, I think, is toxic to the general population and lethal to women in particular. This culture insinuates to us that we are not allowed to eat and we're not allowed to age. We are only going to suffer if we try to follow the standards that are being imposed upon us by that culture. Meditation offers us a way. The Sun meditation that is taught, especially by Sun Master Songdam, offers us a way to base our sense of security, dignity, self-worth, and self-respect upon that which is eternal within us, as opposed to that which is impermanent and unreliable. In a word, Sun meditation teaches us that elusive skill known as aging gracefully. What is aging gracefully? First of all, aging gracefully means that we no longer ask these impermanent bodies of ours, or the objects of the world, or other people in the world to give us our joy and self-respect. Aging gracefully means that we find our happiness and dignity in the limitless resources of our inner mind, the depths of our consciousness, of the human mind, of our true nature, what is called within Buddhism our enlightened Buddha nature. And finally, aging gracefully means that we use meditation to increase our ability to love, to generate compassion and wisdom, not to make ourselves beautiful, but to make this world a more beautiful place for both ourselves and for all people, especially for our children and all the living beings that we share this planet with. Now, it's easy to talk about aging gracefully in such grand terms. It's quite another thing to actually try it out. Aging gracefully is not easy for anyone, including monastics. And the reason for that is simply because even when we're accepting the changes that are going through in our bodies, every 10 years or so, when we sort of get used to the age that we're at, we suddenly discover that we're older again and that we have to get reacquainted with our newly aged physical selves. So we're all always trying to catch up to the age that we're at. So aging gracefully requires us to let go of our assumptions and expectations about our own physical appearance, about our own physical form. That is inherently difficult for unenlightened people like us to do. Because unenlightened people like us, whenever we're asked to give up something, we want to receive something of equal or greater value. It's very hard to give up something you're attached to, even when it's not good for you, if you're not getting something in exchange. So I would like to propose a deal for you from the perspective of Buddhism, and that is that if we give up our overly rigid and ultimately false and pain-inducing assumptions and expectations about our own physical appearance, and in exchange for that, we learn meditation, we claim meditation, and through meditation, we can gain new wisdom, a greater understanding of life, a greater capacity for joy, and an increased ability to love. That's the deal that Buddhism offers. I think it's a good deal, and I would highly recommend that all of you take up that deal. Now, in closing for today, I'll share with you one last statistic, the so-called U-bend curve of self-reported rates of happiness. Now, I realize that's a mouthful, and what that basically means is that a survey was made of the general population in the United States of all different age groups, asking them to rate their happiness, their current level of happiness on a scale from 1 to 10. And then this was charted on a graph. And what researchers found was a so-called U-shape, a U-bend curve, when they charted it, when they plotted it out. And so what we found was in the 18 to 21-year-old group, the average score of happiness from 1 to 10 was, up here at 6.8. And then over time, as we age, the average level of happiness drops to a low of 6.3 on average in the 50 to 53-year-old age group. So until roughly middle age, our happiness, the trend is that our happiness drops. But then interestingly, after that, it swoops back up again and goes up and up and up, and it actually exceeds the happiness rate of 18 to 21-year-olds. The peak of happiness, on average, is between the age of 82 and 85. 82 to 85-year-olds, on average, score 7 out of 10. Higher than the peak of youth, 18 to 21 years old. So you have this curve 18 to 21, then you drop all the way down to 50 to 53, and then you come all the way up even higher in the 82 to 85-year-old age range. This is very positive and encouraging for us. And what I would like to leave with you in closing for today's program is a suggestion. I would like to suggest to all of us that perhaps the best time in our lives, the happiest time in our lives, is not behind us in the past, but ahead of us in the future. It's not only possible, but on a pure scientific statistical level, it's actually probable that that is true. And we should not worry so much about our own physical appearance. So that's it for today. Once again, I will thank all of our studio audience members and all of our viewers at home. I hope you got a lot out of today's program. And again, in closing, I will say, may we all attain the Buddha.